just because your favorite piece of media got a bunch of lore, okay, has an extensive history. If you sat down, you told everybody what happens to your favorite video game, movie, TV series, manga, whatever, it takes you hours on end to describe every minute little detail, okay, because you got a bunch of lore. That doesn't mean you got a well written story. Lore is important. It is integral to world building. Look at One Piece, for example. A lot of people hate One Piece because it's really long, but a part of that One Piece length is dedicated to making these worlds feel very lived in, from the people of Alabasta all the way to the people Dressrosa, Wano. Oda is very, very good at putting a lot into making these worlds feel like they have extensive culture. Okay, these worlds are lived in, but Oda is also very good at tying a narrative around those worlds, around those ideas. I've always held the opinion that One Piece has the greatest individual story beats. I think when I think about the One Piece story, I think about moments of Luffy, right, putting his straw hat on Nami and him taking charge and freeing her from the Arlong pirates. That shot of him standing atop with the flag, that shit is such striking imagery because I think about, oh my god, the journey we went through, how I got to watch how the people have suffered under Arlong for so long, and Luffy demolishing all that, allowing them to start anew, to be freed from the grasp of the Arlong people. Oh my god, that is sensational storytelling. And I bring up One Piece because that's the main example I think of a series that has extensive lore, but it also got the story writing. Okay, now writing is a very divisive term. What good writing is, to me at least, is good writing is how well an author, mangaka, a game developer, game designer is able to communicate their ideas, their concepts to their audience through the action of the characters, through the world building. And there's so many ways to get this done, okay? A lot of horror games you'll see, they'll have like the VHS tapes. They'll have photography. They'll have little collectible items. Five Nights at Freddy's is the biggest one of you being able to experience the world through the environments, through the visual storytelling, being able to see the posters that are hung up in the locations of the games, and being able to piece together what might have happened. FNAF has really good world building in the sense that explains the surrounding situation of the kids and the animatronics. Great. The problem is FNAF, and by extension, Scott Cawthon can't piece the shit together to save his life. I don't care. And you see this, people, I seen a lot of modern Neo FNAF fans, right? People who got into the franchise a little bit later. And that's not to shame them, but I see people try and talk about how the older games were way better. And my response is, no, the fuck they weren't. The story, okay, there is a lack of overarching narrative that is effectively, emphasis on the word effectively, communicated between pieces. Okay, Scott was known for writing this shit on the fly, and from occasionally hearing some shit in the community, me like, fuck, dude, they might have just figured it out. So I might have to pivot from this plot point entirely. Look no further than the FNAF 4 box. Okay, now Scott can write good isolated incidents, okay? I think about the Henry speech in FNAF 6 all the time, but just because he put that speech together doesn't mean that Scott is a great fucking writer. Scott is good at putting a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of details that makes this case about the missing kids and William Maff and everything feel very, I don't want to say real, but it feels lived in. It feels like one of those ancient things that you might hear about through newspaper, right? Conspiracy theory type activities. Scott has a lot of that. Now, good story. Now, being able to communicate those effectively to the audience. Oh, absolutely not. You'll never catch me saying Scott Cawthon is a great storyteller unless I've been injected with some type of live virus, okay? I'm gonna be so dead ass with you, and look no further than the damn FNAF movies, okay? Scott cannot write to save his fucking. But I bring up Five Nights at Freddy's because I want to hammer in on the point that just because you have extensive worlds, right, you have extensive lore, don't mean that you are a great writer and that your story has that, okay? Now, this all came up because I was on the timeline. I see a post talking about Overwatch. Now, someone said, I'll never forgive the internet for taking such a complex, well-written character like Diva and reducing her to goon bait. The problem with the statement, only one of those things is true, objectively. Not objectively, but at least in my personal opinion, one of those things is true debatably. and it might be the last one. However, let me get one thing clear. I think the people who, whenever you talk about Overwatch, and the first thing they bring up is porn, you're mad annoying, you're mad weird. Okay, like dog, we talk. Even if we're just talking about gameplay, like bro, if you still gooning to Overwatch in the big 2-6, bro, you need to find something else, man. I hate to break it to you, man. It's too old. Unc don't got it no more. Unc does not have it anymore. But beside that point, Overwatch and the conversation around Overwatch has always pissed me off because Overwatch is made by Blizzard. Blizzard, the people who made the World of Warcraft games, okay? MMOs are known for having extensive worlds, and world building because a lot of that, the flavor text, because MMOs want you to be fully immersed in that world. So how do you do that? You tell about, oh, well, this is the extensive history of these. These are the cultures present within this world. And Overwatch has a lot of pretty damn good world building, and a lot of those were communicated through these shorts that existed. When Overwatch used to get cinematics, we found out so much about the world, the Omnic people, talent, the main Overwatch, the United Nations, and their role and all that. However, there's a point where we got to have a conversation about the story of Overwatch, and being genuine, the Overwatch story has not progressed in a meaningful way in the last 10 years, except for like the last 30 fucking days, okay? Overwatch was supposed to have its PvE, the main story, right? That was supposed to be communicated to us. And that never happened, okay? I'm not going to explain the fucking history of you there, and if you clicked on this video, you probably fucking know what happened in Overwatch's story, or what happened with the story of Overwatch 2 and Jeff Kaplan and all that, right? But I make that point because in the conversation of D.Va being a complex, well-written character, one, a lot of y'all seem to be attached to these characters and treat them as if they're real people and not like, vessels for communicating the main story's theme and everything that encompasses that. Two, where's the writing? Now, D.Va might have a pass of sorts dealing with the Omnics in Korea and everything like that through her Shooting Stars short. However, the story has yet to progress in a way where we can tell if D.Va has suffered, or not suffered, but if D.Va has evolved in any meaningful way. Watch as her character has changed from one point to another. That outright doesn't exist, okay? Now, you can have a flashback. Be important and be used for character development. As much as people love to talk about JJK not having any writing, one of the things that I actually really liked, and like everyone else, is the Gojo's past arc, hidden inventory. Most importantly, the conversation surrounding Gato, and how watching his fall in real time and watching as he has been corrupted makes his appearance in JJK 0, and by extension, when Kenjaku takes his body and we use the information that we learned about his backstory and how he was involved with Gojo, when that became a central part of Kenjaku's plan to use it against him, oh my fucking god. See, now we have a sense of plot progression because we get to see how Gojo reacted back then watching watching Gato begin to shift in that awful fucking way. We got to see Gojo refuse to take accountability and put Gato down for good, and then we got to watch it be used against him. His common thing of letting his guard down that has been persistent throughout the whole story be used against him yet again. That shit is sensational writing. It is sensational writing about Gojo's careless, about his recklessness. I fuck with that so heavy. Overwatch don't got nothing like that because the plot in Overwatch has yet to progress in any meaningful way. Overwatch is also the victim of the supplementary assassin. What I mean by that is Overwatch got a bunch of comics, a bunch of fucking extracurricular activities to learn more about the world and casting characters. However, my issue with that is low-key, a lot of that shit don't fucking matter unless it's in the not main continuity, but in the main gameplay experience. When you play Overwatch, a lot of this shit, right? A lot of shit that's in the comics now, they made it easier to get a hold and like understand, okay, where these things are, easier to access the comics. But if you just strictly play the game, you try to piece the lore off of shit that happens in the game, you're not gonna be able to fucking do that because unfortunately, Overwatch has the thing that I see a lot of, like primarily it's Five Nights at Freddy's love to have core pieces of the lore and fucking bits and pieces of fucking extra reading material, dude. Like it's so ass backwards. But beyond that point, and again, I want to get to the main point. You can like characters that may or may not be extremely well written, okay? I like Ruby. I like Blake from Ruby because I think Blake is a bit silly. I think Blake has a cool design. Do I like Blake's writing? Fuck no. I think mostly everyone in Ruby is written pretty fucking awfully because they continuously fail to properly communicate whatever the main message or story is trying to get across. Look no further than the White Fang and the racism allegory because holy shit, it just don't work. It contradicts a lot of the messages that they're trying to get across about prejudice, and a lot of the conversations around that are contradicted through Adam and the rest of the White Fang and the faunus as a whole. The race analogy does not work at all in Ruby, and I'm not going. And to explain that is going to require me to sit down and like have to explain to you the whole world building of Remnant, and I'm not doing all that shit, bro. If you know, you know. But that's just my point. I don't really know, bro. I kind of just get on here to yap about something because I was mad because the tweet made me mad. I feel like I had to explain why I was upset by the tweet, even though it's not that serious. You know, this is Twitter, and I feel like it's been a while since I had something to yap about. But yeah.